you so much. I am so happy to get to be here today. Really happy to be in Florida. Thawing out. This feels good. Coming from Alaska. Extremely happy to get to be in a room full of hard-working men and women who really have built this country and allowed America, especially, to be connected. I respect what it is you do. Really excited, hopefully afterwards, to get to meet as many of you as I can personally, because, again, in respecting what you do, believe it or not, towers and communication infrastructure is kind of some dinner table talk in our family, believe it or not. So I'm like, man, the more I'm thinking about my roots, my foundation, especially when it comes to my career choices, like only this room can probably appreciate what it is that has gone into my career. I started off in between college years working trouble desk and as a dispatcher for our local utility, and just great respect for the guys out there and the gals who are, climbing and in those man baskets and doing all that dangerous stuff, and just, great respect for what it is, and not just because I have just a great fright of heights, but watching what it is that you all in your ilk do there at the utility. And then I worked for Municipal Light and Power, same thing, working with the guys and the gals out there, building towers and maintaining infrastructure and all that construction that's needed for phones, electricity. At the time, we were still thinking about cell phones, but all the coverage that would be reliant on these towers. And my husband, Todd, was a laborer at a different electric company, just, buddies with all the guys that do so much of what it is that you do. My father-in-law was general manager of another electric company. My mother-in-law, vice president of another telephone company. So again, believe it or not, we do talk about infrastructure and communications. And when I was invited to this, I'm like, absolutely, I'm going to feel like I'm right at home because of what it is that you do. And I told one of my guys who's traveling with me last night, I said, do you think there's going to be some blue-collar guys out there? I hope so, because, then I'll really feel at home. And he goes, yeah, I was just down in the bar. He goes, and I think I saw some of the guys. I said, how do you know it was them? That part of the crowd. He goes, well, I spotted some tattoos. I'm like, okay, good sign. I said, did you see any Carhartts and steel-toed boots? He says, yeah, I think I spotted some. And I'm like, okay, yes, this is our crowd. These are our people. Because that is who I am. That's who my family, blue-collar, hardworking, working with our hands, skills as commercial fishermen, and Todd up in the oil fields in Prudhoe Bay, knowing that it is so important, especially for our young people, to see the rewards that certainly you all reap as successful business owners and laborers and employers and employees, that our young people realize there is great reward in learning a skill as specific as how to climb a tower and how to maintain communication infrastructure. And it's Nate that brings people together and allows more education, more progress, more oversight of government trying to oversee more of you. Nate is a greatly respected organization, so very glad to get to be here. I respect you because you're part of a proud tradition in America, too, of the workers and the engineers and the technicians who built the country from the ground up, and it's been through hard work and innovation. I say you're the unsung heroes of America's economic engine. You build the infrastructure that we all rely on today. Of course, so many of you having literally that touch on our cell phones, our iPads, all of the social networking, all of those things that keep America connected and makes the world even be closer. It's thanks to you. You're willing to battle the heights and the harsh weather, those crazy conditions that I know many of you work in, and often in remote locations in states like mine, and you have made our lifestyles possible. As small business owners out there, you are especially respected because you are the ones that understand quite literally what it means to build something from the ground up. And you work your way up safely from the soil, again, through those elements, through the wind and the rain and the snow and the heat, and then you come back down every day, and you get up in the morning, and you put your boots on the next morning, and you do it again. And we appreciate that you're so willing to do this. As small business owners, you know too how difficult it is to navigate through today's government bureaucracy that really in so many respects is overburdening this industry. It's federal agencies with oversight of the tower industry that Nate really has an influence on, because Nate can help you navigate through the maze of what these bureaucracies are doing to so many of our small businesses today, and really stymieing more progress that our economy should be enjoying. So it's not an easy task, and we appreciate that Nate is there to help all these small businesses be able to figure out what it is that you can do collectively, and even as individual businesses, to influence our politicians as they make decisions on regulations. There are a myriad, of course, of safety inspectors and regulators walking through, and some just kind of hanging out at your already dangerous work sites in some respects. And I know in those high-risk job sites that safety is first, and that's another thing so impressive about Nate, is that you're world leaders when it comes to safety regulations and teaching others, sharing others about what it takes to have a safe job site. And I think that you're quite influential too in influencing politicians who can influence then the bureaucrats when it comes to safety regulations. At times, I'm sure it can seem as if some of these regulations are as high as the towers that you build and that you climb, and you're not alone in thinking this. An example, last December, 15 days before the new year, we're all getting ready to enjoy Christmas with our families, not paying attention, not thinking we have to pay a whole lot of attention to Washington, D.C. and what they're doing to us around that time. Well, while we're not paying a whole lot of attention, President Obama and his administration, they rammed through 1,200 new regulations, and it was like unbeknownst to most of us. Experts predict that all these new regulations are going to cost American taxpayers $181 billion more in new fees. And that's not even factoring in the effect that these regulations have on our small businesses, who are our biggest job creators. It's a disincentive for small businesses to even start up, much less grow and employ more people. All these new fees, these regulations, these taxes. Keep in mind that the Obama administration passed this $181 billion increase in new regulatory fees, and not one person voted for it. That's an example of what I call a permanent political class in D.C. governing by fiat and creating an ever-expanding bureaucracy that supports, unfortunately, whoever has the most money to hire the best lobbyists to get what they want through the White House and through Congress. And right now, this very day, in fact, a very significant government bureaucracy is scheduled to vote on a rule change that's going to have major implications for your industry. As many of you probably know, the FCC, with the encouragement, the push from the Obama administration, which is really kind of crossing a line, separation of powers, but the Obama administration is pushing the FCC to reclassify broadband as a telecommunications service, which would make the internet service a public utility under Title II regulation of the Communications Act. That would be the Communications Act of 1934, before anybody even thought about the internet. It's this very day, ironically, that the FCC is voting on new rules for more regulation and new regulation of the internet, and these rules are expected to pass. Now, whatever your view is on net neutrality, Here are a few things to keep in mind. Experts estimate that using these New Deal era regulations are going to cost consumers $15 billion more annually in new taxes, meaning that we'll all individually have to pay more for the service, and that's going to tick us off. And President Obama has already signed 20 tax increases into law since he's been in office, and this is going to be one more. All of these new taxes have left Americans, obviously, with less disposable income and really less incentive for people to get out there and work really hard. People who are getting frustrated with government being on our back instead of being on our side. And we now feeling like, wait, government is supposed to work for us. We're not supposed to have to work for government. But that's what we're leading ourselves into by not standing up and saying, no, enough is enough, big government and big government agencies. Let the private sector do what it does best. You guys make decisions better than some politician in some far-off bubble in Washington, D.C. You guys know how to run your businesses. You guys know how to balance budgets and make payroll, and you know what it takes to create jobs. I dare say a whole lot of those politicians don't, because they've never done it before. Many of them, obviously, they've never worked with their hands and known what it takes to keep maintaining and building and progressing in the construction field, because they haven't done it themselves. Well, President Obama, not understanding, I believe, that the internet should be an engine of prosperity, not taxation and burdensome regulation, he not understanding that this is going to be bad for our pocketbooks. It's going to be bad for the internet service itself, and we would be giving unaccountable bureaucrats a blank check to micromanage internet service plans. And as everyone here knows, it costs a lot of money to maintain the infrastructure required to keep America connected, to keep America online. Since 1996, more than $1.2 trillion has been invested in that infrastructure. Due to your hard work and innovation, 90% of Americans have access to this communications, to broadband. But, once the federal bureaucracies step in with their heavy-handed rules and their new regs that they want to cram down our throats, will the industry have enough incentive to keep investing and to continue that private sector capital, too, that is needed to maintain and expand and improve the service? Probably not. The job and innovation-killing effects of what these new regulations will bring, they are far-reaching. And you have to ask yourself, has the federal bureaucrats, have they ever made anything run cheaper or better or smoother? I can't think of a thing that they have done better than you all can do individually and in your own businesses in the private sector. And ask yourself this: do you want the same bureaucrats who run the Obamacare website to regulate the internet? I dare say no. President Reagan used to say, the scariest words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." They just don't help. Well, the new rule changes amount to an Obamacare for the internet. We can coin it the Obamanet. Soon they'll be telling us, if you like your internet plan, you can keep your internet plan. And we already know how that goes. That's kind of the equivalent of saying that, oh, Al Gore did invent the internet. Right, yeah. Well, finally consider this. The internet represents the best, sometimes the worst, of free speech. The ability, the right that we have to express ourselves, be it on a blog or Facebook or texting and emails, just a myriad of formats and forums to express ourselves and to get business done. Well, the ability to express ourselves is one of the foundational principles of this nation, and it's something then that this latest proposal for government to take over so much more of that, it's in this power grab, it will threaten that right of our freedom of expression, freedom of speech. And here I think, man, we're sending America's sons and daughters overseas to fight and be willing to die for our right, protected with freedom of speech, freedom of expression. How dare politicians think that they can squander that effort, that drive, that commitment that our troops have as they're fighting for our freedom, fighting to defend our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. Well, I just wish that bureaucrats, that politicians would keep that bigger picture in mind and ratchet it down too, to consider who these troops are. I don't know, maybe a lot of them aren't sending their sons and daughters overseas to fight for our freedom. Certainly if you're one who has, and if you've served yourself, you know what I'm talking about. The sacrifices made in order to protect our Constitution and that First Amendment right, all of our rights. Well, those rule changes are likely to pass. Probably today, they'll pass. But what is predicted is that internet service providers are going to start fighting back, though. Probably lawsuits, of course, meaning attorneys are going to be the ones making the big bucks through all of this. It's kind of a racket, the way this works. But they'll fight back with lawsuits, and perhaps it will be the courts that will decide whether regulations will be enacted, shoved down your throats or not. But in the meantime, really it is my hope and my prayer, and I think I speak for the majority of Americans on this, hoping that you all will stay enthused, that you will stay committed to the growth that this country needs, and that we have the potential really to embrace and to live out the growth, the innovation, the investment, the hard work, especially that work ethic that, man, the next generation needs to be able to see that reward for that work ethic is so worth it. And it's industry like this that can set that example. It's my hope that you will stay enthused about what it is that you do. Please know that Americans are really grateful for you and to you. Again, as I say, you're world leaders when it comes to innovation and education and safety and progress. And it's important, I think, to tell you how appreciated you are, because I'm afraid you're not thanked enough. And by you, I mean all the men and the women like you who built this country and have worked with their hands and have taken those risks to start a business and to grow that business and to hire people. Well, you who follow the rules and get up and, you drag yourself out of bed each morning and face a grueling work day, and, you're raising kids and you're paying taxes, and you just want government off your back and by your side so you can do what you do best. Well, that will allow the American dream to continue, and we all want to live that American dream. We can pass that American dream on to our children if it's not fundamentally transformed. And that's what's promised us today with our leaders, is they're going to fundamentally transform America. We don't need a fundamental transformation. We need a fundamental restoration of all that is good and free and safe and secure about America. And it's in your hands. You, the ones who are building America, it's in your hands, that fundamental restoration that we need to see. You guys, you can do it. Tough times right now, a lot of people recognize this country, though, will succeed as long as men and women like you, an organization like Nate, keeps it up. Wake up every morning, pull on those Carhartts and tie those steel-toed boots. Some of you not steel-toed, though, when I consider what it is that you're working around with some electric arcs. I don't think steel-toed. But as long as you all keep moving, keep building, keep fighting for what it is that we are built upon and what Americans believe in, then we're going to succeed and preserve that American dream. So I thank you so much, sincerely, for all that it is that you do. And please don't think that the rest of America just takes it for granted. All of you hard workers, I thank you. I say, God bless you, Nate, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you. Thank you.